And of course, we hope that something will be done around that. Now, moving forward, as the country prepares to host the Africa Climate Summit, Kenya could use the platform to showcase its capability for hosting more international conferences at a time when the country continues to face significant competition in the conference tourism space. Now, I spoke to the CEO of Brand South Africa, Sitembile Ntombele, on the sidelines of the just concluded BRICS Summit on how one can use such forums to market the country and what lessons can Kenya draw from there. Here is that conversation. Sambela, thank you so much for making time to speak to KTN. So we just want to understand from where you sit as Brand South Africa. We know this has been a hectic process for you. So take us through the journey of organizing for the 15th BRICS Summit.
Thank you for the opportunity. So for me, actually, what I would like to share rather as experience is that obviously to come and behind and be the driver and the host of such an important session means a lot to us. There's been a lot of work in terms of us aligning as key stakeholders in terms of agreeing to what message are we going to portray or rather convey to our visitors, whether it's international community from a tourism or investors perspective. And I think the journey started there, trying to align first, finding internal alignment so that the approach is not a fragmented one but more of an integrated one with a bit of cohesiveness in messaging. So that is what I think we've done and we've mastered well, despite the challenges that obviously we saw in as far as the noise around South Africa being neutral, to the situation around Ukraine and Russia. But ours was to state a stance that promotes peace amongst countries between the two countries, and then we've never deviated or never hidden from that perspective. So we had to do a lot of message alignment. Oh well, we know there's an interest and a huge hype around number of countries wanting to join the BRICS bloc. And of course, the negotiations are currently underway, and one of the outcomes will be precisely that, to make an announcement in terms of who the countries are, the process in as far as vetting and the criteria is concerned, etc., etc. But that is just one of many outcomes. The other outcomes, as you would have seen, the BRICS Business Council championed a number of work streams. In fact, there were 9 work streams with the aim of bridging the gap between what is out there in as far as the investment opportunities and the trade opportunities, and how we can amplify that, particularly in an era where we know we've got an AfCFTA, and therefore how does that change the rules of engagement? How does it addresses issues such as your trade barriers that exist, and the tariffs, etc., etc. So I think those are going to be outcomes that we see will come out from this BRICS.
All right, so lastly, before we go, and you've talked about the different opportunities in South Africa, particularly the investment side, which I'm sure a lot of my audience would want to know. What sectors of the economy are you foreseeing with the greatest opportunities for investment that Kenyan investors can come into South Africa and investment? Also, as we look at cross-border trade and under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, what are some of those elements that we can tap into to grow the relationship between the two countries as far as trade is concerned?
Important sectors that I hear about it, it's I've heard in this conference since the inception of the trade exhibit show, agriculture certainly one of the biggest, and we know that as the African continent we have rich minerals, we have the capabilities. In fact, within the BRICS itself, all of us have strength, but we are not trading enough with each other. So why am I saying that? It's because of the tariffs issues that I spoke about that needs to be sort of attended to, or rather unblocked. But the other sector is around the renewable energies. We know in the African continent we have energy shortages, and if we have your likes of Brazil, who are performing very well in as far as innovation and driving innovation and solutions around renewable energy, it actually tells us that there's an opportunity even for them to now penetrate the African continent much better, and knowing where the opportunities are. And the third one is digitalization, as you would know. That is very important because you have to find solutions that will enable and facilitate the trade amongst the villages in the African communities as well as these other BRIC countries. And I know that's one of the key agendas that are trying to fast track.
All right, so one final question before I let you go. I can see a number of my colleagues lining up just to speak to you. So there's the question of what numbers were you looking at, particularly attending this summit? We know that the president, that is Cyril Ramaphosa, spoke about 40 heads of state. So from an actual number of attendees of this forum, what does it look like as we wind up?
I cannot tell you the actual number, but from a business council perspective, there's about 1,200 delegations of the BRICS Business Council that come from different countries, including South Africa. So that's quite a huge number if you consider the number of people they represent and the bodies they represent. Yeah. The heads of state, indeed, I think thus far there's about 20 heads of states that are present, and that tells you that the agenda and the focus is on the African continent, because suddenly, if we are to realize that objective that has been set out to create a BRICS bloc that will go far beyond and become a global trade partner, that is the key mission, and I think we are on the right track.
All right, and of course the message coming from there is aligning messages during